Hello all, this is Dr. Dave Maslak, and I really wanted to talk to you in this video about how to actually measure innovation in a particular company. I'm a professor of innovation, strategy, and entrepreneurship, so this is something that is really near and dear to me. This is part of my small business and startup Saturday series, where I just talk about things that are useful or of use to startups and small businesses on YouTube. So what I'm going to do in this particular video is go into exactly what do I mean by measuring innovation, go into both quantitative ways and qualitative ways of assessing and measuring innovation within your company. There is a lot of different ways that you can actually measure innovation and measure the output of a particular innovation. Why this is important is because it's going to save you a lot of money, and it's also going to reduce the amount of time that you sort of spend on going in the wrong direction. If you're trying to innovate and you only have a small amount, you have a small budget or small research and development budget, you have to be very, very careful in what you choose and where you pursue going forward. So it's really important for a lot of small businesses and startups and even major corporations to actually get this right, because they're going to spend a tremendous amount of money on innovation. In a lot of different industries, they're spending upwards of like 10% of their total revenue on new innovations. This is really, really common in a lot of different industries, in many different sectors, that they're going to spend that much money. So you have to be spending it very, very wisely. And the way that you do that is assess the innovation in the most appropriate way. Before I actually get into that and go to these different metrics, I wanted to actually tell you that these videos that I'm doing are all about my reciprocity project. The E is spelled with a 3. It's a sharing economy proofreading platform that I'm trying to build, where I truly believe that people should be able to get all of the feedback that they desire on the things that they are doing in life. So you can check that out. So what are these different metrics? How do you actually measure innovation? What's the best way to measure innovation? Well, there's two different ways, as I mentioned, in terms of sort of two broad ways that you can measure innovation within your company. I'm going to start off with a quantitative way. The quantitative way is the net present value calculations. And some of you who have taken finance, for example, or accounting, you probably have done net present value calculations. And really all you're doing is trying to figure out it's basically like a broad-based break-even analysis, where you're just adding up all what you spent on a particular innovation, how much it actually costs, and then you're looking to see how much revenue it's actually producing in the long run. And what you're doing is accounting for the time value of money, meaning that money today is worth a lot more than it's going to be in the future, simply because that money is going to the same amount. So if you have $1 today, it's going to be worth a lot more than what $1 is going to be worth in 10 years, because $1 depreciates. So 10 years from now, it's not nearly as worth, $1 is not nearly as worth the same amount as what it is right now. And so all you're trying to do is take account for that particular effect, and sort of inflation and different things like that, using net present value calculations to really sort of, sometimes it gets really complicated, but I'm not going to get into those particular issues. And really what you're trying to do is look for the moment at which it is profitable for you to actually invest in this particular innovation. So if you're getting more revenue than what you're actually putting in, then it makes sense to actually invest in this innovation. What companies typically do is they calculate what's called an IRR, internal rate of return. And they're looking for a rate of return on projects, particularly things that they're creating, probably in the 20 to 30 to 40% range in terms of the return on investment that they're putting in. The reason why they want such a high return on investment is because most innovations actually fail. They are very, very risky. So you should expect either a very high rate of return or even magnitudes rate of returns to actually get your money back, versus just investing in the stock market. Stock market's going to provide you between 8 and 12% in any given year. Sometimes it fluctuates, but basically it's between 8 and 12% every single year that you're going to invest in the stock market. So it has to greatly increase the amount of return that you're going to have to get from these projects or the thing that you're choosing has to greatly exceed that particular amount, right? So you have to be very, very careful about that in terms of doing net present value calculations. Now, the problem with net present value calculations is that it doesn't really do a very good job of accounting for uncertainty of whether something actually is going to sort of take off. And there's a way to actually do this, and it's called the real options analysis. It's actually based on some really sophisticated things, but basically the idea behind it, I'm just going to give you the broad idea behind it, is that what you're trying to do is look at the innovation that you're creating as a option, so a real option to pursue that particular thing in the future. So what an option is the right, but not the obligation to pursue that particular thing in the future. That's a really important concept to understand and to think about in order for you to actually pursue going in the future, right? So, or pursue a particular thing. So in that case, what you're looking for is innovations that allow you to actually move to the next thing, and you can continuously move to the next thing by investing in that, right? So you're using it as a way to actually learn and leverage those particular skills. And if nothing pans out, you're not going to lose a lot. So you're looking for sort of small investments that you can invest in, see if it's actually going to take off in one way or the other. And if it takes off, great. If it doesn't, then you've actually learned something along the way about that particular thing. So just think about it in that way. The other thing that you can do, and the other sort of methodology that is common, although it's not necessarily as common as one would think in industry, but it's common for researchers to look at and do, is to do sort of a market-based approach, where you can, particularly if you're in a public company or something along those lines, you can look at the innovation, you can look at the introduction of the innovation and see when it actually, what happens in the stock market when you introduce that innovation. If the stock market jumps up dramatically at the moment that that you introduce the innovation, you can actually look at the difference between where the stock price was compared to where it is immediately after that innovation was introduced. And then you have what is the market perception of what that innovation is actually valued at, right? So assuming that all the information is accounted for in that particular marketplace. And that does, as far as we know, it does do a pretty good job in terms of calculating how the market actually values that innovation, right? So there's lots of different reasons why this is kind of a muddy process, but that's in general how it actually works out, or how we think about the sort of market valuation of an innovation. So there's different ways. The problem with these particular mathematical or empirical ways of calculating innovations is really difficult to actually forecast whether an innovation is actually going to do a really good job or actually going to pan out, it's going to be profitable. There's a lot of reasons for this, particularly in an uncertain industry, for example. If there's lots of uncertainty around, you can't predict the future very well, and you're just kind of grabbing in the dark. And net present value calculations, for example, need a tremendous amount of sort of forecasting in the future of what the value is going to be. And we're really terrible human beings. Managers are really bad at actually predicting the future. The other thing is that in sort of the startup world or small business world, which most of you are in watching this video, is that you don't know what you're doing at this moment, right? So you have no projection where the future is going to be. A lot of you are just within your first year, maybe your first and 2 years, and you have no idea where this is actually going to go in the future. So I can't really make predictions of what your revenue streams are going to be. So instead of doing that, what is recommended is to do sort of qualitative approaches to assessing whether the innovation is actually valuable or not. So the way that you do that is you assess sort of screening questions, and you think about screening questions of how to actually set this up. So it might be something like, is this innovation going to add to the capabilities of the organization? Is this innovation going to lead to better learning goals for the innovation? Things along those lines that are very, that you're looking for specific screening questions. In terms of sort of looking at the project itself, you can look at, are the managers are they going to pan out? Do you believe in those managers, for example? Does that project fit in within the organization? All those kind of things are really important questions to ask about. and really just screen and think about. And that's why you see on a lot of these sort of investment guru shows like Shark Tank, for example, that they're just asking a lot of questions. They're trying to figure out what's going on. They're asking a lot of qualitative questions of what's actually going to go in the future. Now, if you're really wise and you're a good investor, for example, then you're probably going to wait until you have a little bit of information available and you see whether it's actually going to pan out. You do small investments in a particular thing and you see if there's actually going to be revenue that's going to start from that. That's called you can think of it as a minimal viable product, for example, something that's really small. You make an investment, see if it's actually going to pan out in the short run. And the more that you can sort of reduce that, the better off you are in terms of the more that you invest at the beginning and the smaller that you invest in the future versus the amount of return that you get, the better off you're going to be in terms of understanding whether that market is actually a good market to go into or not. And that's sometimes really difficult to do. I'm going to admit that. And it's not necessarily clear until you actually get the market started because you're creating something new if you're in the startup world, right? Not a lot of people know what you're doing and what you're up to. So that's it. So, actually, one more thing in terms of what do you do in terms of going forward in what you should do with your own innovations and your own company. How should you assess the innovations that you currently possess? Well, what I would do and what I would recommend for people to do, this is probably, there's some there's some problems with this particular technique, but it is the best technique that is the simplest technique. Is just go get best practices in a particular industry that you're in. Just look at what maybe it's the most successful company or the largest company in your particular industry. Look to see at how they're innovating or how they are assessing innovation practices and try to mimic that as much as you possibly can. If you can mimic the process and make it really clear and sort of just be very, very clear cut and sort of resembling what other people are doing, then you're probably actually going to be really much better off than just kind of stumbling in the dark and not knowing what you're going to do. So by having a clear understanding of what your innovation is worth, you're going to be able to judge the value of your company, be able to judge the value of your innovations a lot more, and you're going to price it a lot better as well. You price the innovation a lot better, but as well as if there's any investors available, you'll be able to have a much better picture of what your company is worth based on that particular innovation. So that's it. That's all I wanted to talk about. Hopefully you found that interesting and valuable for a video. Give me an old thumbs up if you like it. I could provide more of these kind of things if you like. You watch the older videos I put out every Saturday. I put out these small business startup Saturday, strategy Saturday videos as well. On Thursdays I put about things about innovation in the world around us that you might be interested. And any other day, any other day I do put out stuff about, going to graduate school and becoming a PhD, for example, or writing, or, what the Reciprocity Project is all about. So you can check out those videos. I do encourage you to do that. Thank you so much. Have a good day. And I'm looking forward to seeing you on the next video. Bye.